Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us on day 2 of our Rural Water webinar, which forms part of Rural Water Week. My presentation today is titled Quality Assurance Mechanisms to Help Improve Implementation. In my talk today, I'm going to cover the following topics. I'm going to take a brief look at the drinking water regulations and what the requirements of them are. I'm going to look at the National Federation of Group Water Schemes Quality Assurance System. I'm going to ask the question, why implement our quality assurance system? Further, going to go on and examine how does a group scheme effectively implement quality assurance. We'll take a brief look then at what additional resources are available to assist with quality assurance. And finally then, what mechanisms can improve quality assurance implementation. Very simply. So what do the drinking water regulations say? Well, according to the drinking water regulations, a group scheme or a water service provider must provide a clean and wholesome supply of water to their consumers or their members, must be in a position to verify that the disinfection system is performing as it should be, and that it's effective in treating the water. A group scheme or service provider should only use approved products for use in drinking water when they're treating water, not to compromise human health. Furthermore, a group scheme must maintain records of operational and both operational and compliance monitoring, and also record any incidents, emergencies or failures which occur on the scheme and how they were dealt with. And these records must be held for inspection by either the Water Service Authority or, in the case of an incident or emergency, possibly the HSE. So that's simply what the regulations say. And again, when you think about it, these regulations are enforceable under law. Quite a daunting task for any group water scheme to undertake. So what is the National Federation Quality Assurance System? Well, the Quality Assurance System, as currently designed by the National Federation of Group Water Schemes, has been several years now in development, and it was revised, I suppose, at this stage now, the way time flies. It's probably about 5 years ago since we have revised the current version. And the current version which we operate is based on hazard analysis at critical control points. Well, that's quite a mouthful, but if you think about it, it makes sense. We look at each point on a group water scheme where some activity or lack of activity can have an effect on the treated water or the end product. In our quality assurance system, we have identified 5 critical control points. The first being the catchment or the zone of contribution. Second would be the intake or the abstraction point on the water is taken into the treatment plant or water. The treatment plant is the third critical control point, or the pump house. Fourth critical control point would be the reservoirs, and the fifth critical control point is, of course, the distribution network. And this one is probably the one which poses the greatest challenge to the group water scheme, to ensure that a food product which is pumped into a pipe network arrives at a consumer's house or a consumer's tap in pristine condition, fit for human consumption. Now that is quite a task, and an onerous task when you think about it. So, as I said, the QA system is based on hazard analysis at critical control points. And when you look when you go to the quality assurance implementation, what can a successful implementation achieve for a group water scheme? Well, as part of the training, we identify each of the critical control points. We point them out to all the schemes, and we point out possible incidents that can occur at each of those points that would have a knock-on effect on the quality of the water. We then, having identified the possible issues, we highlight ways of implementing appropriate control or mitigation measures so as to ensure that either the incidents don't happen in the first place, or if they do, that they're absolutely kept to a minimum and have minimum impact on the treated water. So, as I said, the quality assurance system highlights what exactly to look for at each of the critical control points. When you're carrying out monitoring and you will see and you'll easily establish if corrective action is required or if something is going wrong at any one of those points. Part of any quality assurance system means that you should be prepared for emergencies and what to do in an emergency situation, be that as a direct consequence of a weather incident, or maybe some contamination incident that occurs. So you are prepared for these emergencies, and the quality assurance system makes sure that you are prepared to deal with anything that is thrown at you from time to time. You will remember that my colleague yesterday, Roisin, dealt with climate change and the effects of climate is having on water service provision. One of these things, I suppose, the climate change in recent years has, had implications as regards drought situations, even flooding situations. We've had the severe cold back in 2010, and all of these things. We've had named storms. We've had Hurricane Ophelia, which did terrible damage to the electrical network, and some group water schemes were out of power for days at that stage. As a result of that, group schemes some of them have decided to install generators so as to minimise the downtime in the event of severe weather conditions. So these are all things which quality assurance prompted, and an effective quality assurance system means that you have systems in place to deal with such incidents and emergencies. So what's required for effective QA implementation? Well, in a nutshell, record keeping. All data that is relevant to quality assurance should be recorded in some form or other. Now, there are various ways of storing that data and recording it, right from the old-fashioned diary to tick sheets, which we make available to schemes when they do the quality assurance training. Some schemes and some of our members are actively recording quality assurance data electronically and in the field, so that when they actually take chlorine residual readings and so on, that they are immediately recorded in the cloud electronically and can be retrieved at a later date by anyone with the required level of authorization to access that information. So, as I said, we also supplied the checklists for group schemes at the various points, and you might have daily checks, weekly checks, monthly checks at different parts of your critical control network. One of the things which is vital to a quality assurance system is an in-depth understanding of your water source and your catchment. And I will be dealing in a couple of minutes with the zonal contribution studies, which were a great assistance in this. You must have effective means of communicating with your members. So a lot of schemes have invested in recent years in web pages and text messaging services, so that if there are issues on the scheme or there are failures or emergencies, that you can immediately contact your members. Texting is very, very effective in this, but there are other means. If you come to a stage where you have to do a boil notice, of course, you have to get a written notice to your members somewhere or other. So effective communications is very important of a QA system. Another thing which is required for effective QA implementation is interpretation of results. So if you get a water test result back from a laboratory, you need to be able to evaluate what's in that result. Does it require action? How do you take remedial action to correct the result, and so on? So those are the things which make up effective quality assurance implementation. This slide here just shows two pictures of operational monitoring and flushing of the networks. Now, your quality assurance system will tell you when when you should be flushing your network. There is a scientific approach to that, in that you look at your total and free chlorine, and based on the figures and the difference between the two, you can say, yeah, it might be time to flush the network, or so on and so forth. On the right hand side there, you can see, I think it's Glaslock to Highland group water scheme installed sampling points or sampling kiosks on their network in recent times. They came in very handy in the recent emergency, in the COVID-19 emergency, where schemes weren't encouraged to visit houses to take samples. So they just took those samples from the box along the side of the road, and it very handy way of establishing how the quality of your water is in your network. What additional resources are available to support QA implementation? Well, this, I suppose, is the Bible of all. The EPA handbook, which was issued some years ago by the Environmental Protection Agency, and it deals with all types of all stages of water production, and anything you want to know about water production or the various processes, it's contained in this EPA handbook. Very, very valuable publication, and I describe it in our quality assurance training as the Bible for all water service providers. You should have a copy of this available at all times. Hard copies were produced in the early days, and they're gone scarce now, but the electronic format of this document is available on the EPA website at epa.ie, and again, very well worth having. So one other additional resource which was made available in recent years, the Department of Housing and Local Government made a grant available to group water schemes that wish to carry out zone of contribution studies. And I'm delighted to say that there has been a very, very high uptake on this, and in excess of 95% of all schemes have this completed. There are one or two or a handful being completed this year, and we hope to have them all completed by the end of this year. But a very, very well worthwhile measure. And we had great cooperation from the Geological Survey of Ireland, and indeed the Centre for Freshwater Studies in DKIT carried out the surveys on the groundwater intakes and zones of contribution. A lot was learned from these particular studies that threw up some very interesting scenarios, particularly in Roscommon and in karst areas, and what direction water was coming from and so forth. So they did provide very, very valuable information to the various group schemes that carry these out. These reports also made a series of recommendations which schemes are currently working on implementing. I suppose one of the things that these reports did throw up was the lack of monitoring of raw water, and that's one of the things which we are highly recommending going forward, that all group schemes should have a raw water monitoring program in place, so as to see what exactly is going on within your catchment and what is your water improving or disproving or whatever. This schematic is just a drawing of the new approach to drinking water management, and it's a drinking water safety planning. This is something you're going to hear a lot more of in the coming months and years. It's the new approach to, I suppose, delivering quality water. It looks at, not unlike the quality assurance system, a holistic approach to management of your water from source to tap. And again, schemes that are implementing the quality assurance system won't have a great deal of difficulty, I think, in converting to the new water safety planning model. So mechanisms to improve implementation of quality assurance. Again, there are several, but one of the most effective ways we found was through amalgamation and rationalization. As you can see from the previous slides, quality assurance implementation is quite a difficult and complicated process. It would be very difficult to carry out on a voluntary basis, and the National Federation of Group Water Schemes has had a policy for a number of years to employ professional managers, either part-time or on a full-time basis. And part of their brief as managers would be to ensure that quality assurance is implemented on a consistent basis, among other duties, of course. Now, one of the most effective ways of ensuring that this happens is that having quality assurance as a continuous item on the agenda for board meetings. And again, by having it on the board meeting agenda, you will look at items such as training, monitoring programs and interpretation of results. All of this will be looked at board level. I will ensure that the quality assurance system is being implemented consistently, continually. So, I suppose the compliance monitoring program, which are carried out by the Water Service Authority under the supervision of the EPA, every year a plan is issued for sampling of group water schemes based on the volume of water that you produce. The number of tests are carried out on your scheme every year. This, I suppose, is the best indication of how group schemes are, complying and how they're supplying water. Are they meeting the regulations and so on and so forth? I suppose one of the concerns we had in recent times is that there does appear to be some, sampling issues. Let it be samples being taken from wrong locations, or coliforms appearing in samples with quite high free chlorine residuals and so on and so forth, would suggest possible issues with sampling. Again, it is a source of frustration for group schemes that are doing their best to make sure that they comply with the regulations and to have failure is then recorded against them, knowing that it possibly may be down to a sampling error or whatever. So that is one thing that we want to keep an eye on. And in order to make sure that isn't happening, what is very important, I suppose, is timely reporting of those results. But I'll say a few more about that in a minute. This graph just shows compliance with E. coli or non-compliance with E. coli in the period from 2011 to 2018. And again, you will see there the top line is the red line are public group water schemes, that are schemes that get their water supply from the public mains. And you can see that there's a very high level of compliance with, there's practically no failures on E. coli from schemes supplied from the public supply. The main line there that we as group water schemes are concerned about would be the green one. That green line there in the graph shows that from 2011 up to 2015, there was a considerable improvement in the compliance for E. coli, and there from 2015 on to 2017 it just kind of flatlined. There was no improvement or disimprovement, and then in 2017, mid 2017, there was a little dip in performance again. Now overall compliance rates for group water schemes is about 96%. So we are striving to get to the 100% compliance, and as the saying goes, one time a lot done but more to do. We are encouraging group schemes to be more proactive, and one of the ways of full implementation of quality assurance will help to get us nearer to that 100% figure which we want to get to. Publishing of water test results. Again, this is something which we've discovered is not uniform across the country. Approximately 50% of water service authorities are publishing the results in line with the circular that was issued in 2009, circular WSP 6. And again, that requires water service authorities to make the results of the monitoring programs available to the public online so they're easily accessible. On screen there are two examples of water service authority publications, one from Limerick County Council and one from Galway County Council. Both excellently done, and that information is widely available through their websites and can be easily accessed by anyone who wants to check their monitoring results of their local group water scheme. And we would ask that most councils or water service authorities should move to this level of information. Water Service Authority auditing is another issue which I suppose is less than uniform across the country. Some water service authorities are very proactive in carrying out water audits, and some are not so active. When we're carrying out our quality assurance training, we market it as a basis to prepare group water schemes to be ready for water safety or authority audits. So if you are implementing your quality assurance properly, you will have no problem in dealing with one of these audits when they occur. As I said, not many of the local authorities are carrying them out, and I suppose it would be nice to see more local authorities doing them, but also got more standardization of the whole audit system itself. That's something I'm sure that will be looked at in due course. When these audits occur, they usually result in a series of recommendations, and based on those recommendations, a lot of schemes I know that have had the audits carried out have contacted the local development officers and asked for assistance in preparing plans to address the issues raised and so on. So again, our development staff will be only too happy to assist you in interpreting those results and possibly putting together plans to address the recommendations and make sure that they're implemented. So that's it. That's the end of my talk. I just hope you found it interesting, that you got something from it. My name is Paul Connolly, as I said, and my email address is on screen there, paul@nfgws.ie, if you want to contact me in relation to any of the topics I've discussed here. So thank you again for your attention. I hope you enjoy the rest of the presentations. Thank you.